Aquaba. Welcome to You Ain't Imagining This. I'm Mama Robin, your sister host here in Yaytown, and this is a space where we talk about what it means to live as a Black person in predominantly white spaces. We name what's happening. We restore what those spaces can take from us, and it can be a lot. And we make room to imagine what else might be possible. And that's also a lot. And today, I am so happy to be back. It has been a minute. I've been away for my summer break. I've been resting, that's right. Traveling, always. Thinking, never stops. Observing, spending my time in Belgium, Portugal, and England, and beyond. But I don't need to go into all those details. And I admit I'm coming back with a lot on my mind. So I thought we should start right here on the front porch. Y'all know the front porch means something very special to me. When I was growing up, I remember sitting on the porch and watching the neighborhood move around us. Neighbors would walk by. Some would wave. Some would stop for a minute. No special invitation was necessary. People shared reflections, neighborhood news, what was happening with somebody down the street, and once in a while, some absolutely top-tier gossip. And sometimes they just came by for some lemonade. The porch could be safe and comforting and uplifting, but it could also be lively and exciting. You could laugh there, think there, learn something new there. Here's something that made you reconsider what you thought you knew. So that's why I'm here on the front porch, and that's what I want our front porch to be. So definitely come as you are, stay as long as you need, and take away what you need. Because today I'm sitting here thinking about what kept coming up during my summer travels. Yeah, you're probably thinking, this is how she's thinking, or what she's doing usually when at the Emoji Cafe or in the bookstore. And that's true. But today, it feels different. I just felt that as I traveled far and wide, I needed to come back home to the porch. So this is where we're going to begin. Asante Sana for being here. I'm so glad you're sticking with me, you're staying with me, that we are here together. So let's get started. So during my travels, people would often ask me why I left the United States. I felt kind of weird sometimes because you meet other people and they say, oh, you're American, you're traveling. I say, yes, I am, but I haven't lived in the United States since 1994. So they would ask me why I left the United States, but I felt it wasn't actually a question. They didn't really ask. They assumed. They were thinking, oh, okay, or they would say, or assume that I left because I wanted to escape America. Escape the racism, escape the politics, escape the stress, escape the high prices, escape the bad health care, escape what it can mean to be Black in the United States. And honestly, I don't mean to judge anyone because I can understand why people might think that. There are things happening in the United States that I do find, well, just absolutely terrible. There are things happening to Black Americans that scare me, that really upset me, and mostly leave me absolutely exhausted. The anti-Black racism, and it's everywhere. The attacks on rights and protections that we fought generations to secure, and finding out they weren't really very secure. The continuing question of whether Black people will actually ever receive equal protection, equal justice, or equal safety. And I don't have the answer to that, but I wonder. And those things really do matter to me a lot. And I think they're always going to matter. But those aren't the reasons that I built a life outside of the United States. Okay, I'm not going to say that didn't have any play, because it did. But those aren't the main reasons. That was never the point. I wasn't simply trying to get away from all of that or to get away from something. I realized, and this may be a recent realization, that I was actually reaching or moving towards something. I was reaching towards a bigger world, another world. And all of this kind of came to me when I was listening to that song, A Whole New World. Remember that from Aladdin, sung by People Bryson? And that has kind of stayed with me. A Whole New World. Stayed with me for years. And one line of the song is, a whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. Sung beautifully by People Bryson. And I realized that's what I was after. Not escape. I was looking for perspective. I wanted to know what the world looked like from somewhere else. And not just from somewhere else, not just going to another country and looking around, to another city and looking around. Because I don't think that, for me, that I could develop a new fantastic point of view by leaving America, moving to Belgium, and saying, okay, that's it. Now I understand the world. No, that's just another window. And I wanted more than one window. In fact, I wanted something bigger than a window. I actually wanted something bigger than comparisons. Although comparison had its place, I wanted something bigger than that too. I wanted to hear different languages and encounter different histories. I wanted to see how people live in other cultures and how they thought about family and work and government and community, and their assumptions about time and rest and relationships and food and themselves. I wanted to know what happened when things that I had assumed were simply normal collided with another person's or culture's completely different version of normal. And yes, they were both normal. They were all normal. And I wanted to let that change me. I wanted to be open to being changed. And change isn't easy for me. So this was a big deal, because simply going somewhere doesn't necessarily change one's point of view. It can, but it doesn't have to. One can travel around the world and take yourself and every assumption you've ever had with you. I mean, you may pack a lot of different things, but you take your experiences and your assumptions with you. And that's okay, because that's normal, that's human. But to grow and change means that you may have to unpack those assumptions and start looking at those a little bit more closely. Developing perspective takes work. It takes intentional effort. And I resisted it for a long time, and I've worked at changing that and letting go of that resistance. I really explored more than 40 countries, and I've lived in 7 or 8 of them. I've made friends across the countries and cultures, and I've probably made a few enemies too. Frankly, I think you're not doing life right if you're not making a few enemies. That's just my theory. And I have stories, lots of stories, and I have some absolutely incredible stories from living overseas. Some are really funny, some are beautiful, some are scary. Some broke my heart, and some have made me furious. But they've also taught me something, because as much as I could, I've allowed them to teach me. Sometimes I learned about another person or culture. Sometimes I recognized racism or exclusion in a place where I really wanted to believe that it wouldn't exist. But it did. And sometimes this is harder. I had to recognize something about myself, an assumption that I was carrying, a judgment that I had made, something that I thought I understood that turned out to be much more complicated. And let's face it, the lessons that really change us aren't always that easy. But I've discovered, as much as I've criticized America, I've discovered how American I am, or I was. And that was really interesting to me. So, when I talk about this new fantastic point of view, I don't mean that I left the United States and magically became enlightened. I wish, but no. I mean that I've spent decades cultivating perspective. The work isn't finished, and I have a feeling it won't ever be finished. And this began actually with being scared half to death. Let me just tell you, I'll take a minute to tell you this story because I think it's kind of interesting. I remember when I moved to the Netherlands. That was, as I said, in 1994. And I had traveled outside of the United States many times before that. But this time, I was moving to the Netherlands. I was in my mid-20s, and I was going to do a study for a year at a master's program there. I was so excited. My mother came with me, and she helped me to settle into my apartment. She stayed for about a week, and we had a great time together. And then it was time for her to go home. Yep, she got on that train and left. And I admit, I fell apart. I cried like a baby. Yes, okay, I left the train station, went home to my apartment, and I cried like a baby. I was terrified. And I remember thinking, what am I doing? How am I making such terrible decisions? Why did I decide to do this? I felt so utterly alone. And then I had this thought that makes me laugh when I think about it. How is it possible that the older I get, the worse decisions I make? I was really thinking that. And I genuinely really thought that I had made a huge, huge mistake. Here I was, far from home. My mother was gone. I was utterly alone, well, felt that way. And whatever adventure I had imagined suddenly looked different. But I remember there was a reception for the program starting that evening in maybe about 2 hours. And after crying for a while, I realized that I had to make a decision. I could stay in that room and cry, or I could go to that reception. So I decided, okay, Amma Robin, you have got to stop crying because I don't want to go to that reception with red, swollen eyes. So I said, I better stop crying now so that everything can clear up and I can look okay at the reception. I pulled myself together, went to the reception, and I had an amazing time. I met people. Actually, I met someone who became my best friend for years up until her passing. And I just had a great time. And I met her, I met other people. We talked, we laughed, connections started forming. And no, I didn't stop being afraid. I was still afraid because I still had to go to that first class the next day. But I learned something that night that's followed me throughout all this time. Being afraid does not mean that I made a bad decision or that it was the wrong decision. Sometimes fear simply means I've entered new territory that I didn't know yet. Actually, I've kind of been describing it more as my bubble is expanding. So, I had planned to spend 1 year in the Netherlands, finish the degree, and then go back to the United States. Well, there were other plans that I didn't know. That was more than 25 years ago. Sometimes, and I'm still here, actually. So that isn't what happened. And sometimes when I think about the young woman sitting in her apartment room crying, she had no idea what had just begun. And I actually really, if I go back to that 25-year-old Alma Robin, I love her for going to the reception anyway, because so much of my life grew out of that small decision. Stop crying for a minute. Go to the reception. See what happens. But I met people, and that was just the beginning of this experience and developing my new fantastic point of view. So no, I have not escaped anything. I did not want to escape anything. I do not want to. But living abroad hasn't given me some fantasy life that difficulties, particularly racism, has disappeared. Absolutely not. I have experienced anti-Black racism in Europe a lot. I would say nearly daily. I've experienced exclusion. I've experienced being the only Black person in the room. I've experienced the particular vulnerability of being a Black woman in places where there are very few of us. And I've been in places that other people described as wonderfully open and welcoming. And I thought to myself, well, that isn't what I'm experiencing. Okay, so for all y'all thinking that Europe doesn't have the racism or that racism is only in the United States, let's get rid of that myth right now. Europe is not a racial utopia. Not even close. White supremacy does not exist only within American borders. Not even close. Anti-Blackness exists in Europe. Racial violence exists in Europe. Different countries have different histories, true. Different racial languages and different ways of expressing it, but crossing or leaving the United States did not allow me to escape racism. As I said, I wasn't even thinking that way anyway, and I never expected it to. But what living abroad gave me wasn't freedom from the world. It gave me another way of looking at the world. And interestingly, that hasn't made me any less connected to the United States. You know, something can happen to a Black person in America, and they do, while I'm thousands of miles away, and I feel it. I feel it deeply. And things have been happening almost on a daily basis, and I feel it very deeply. Because I feel it's not just happening to them or happening over there. I'm a Black American, and I feel it, and I experience it too. What happens to one, I believe, happens to all of us. And sometimes that really just cuts me to the core. I can be sitting peacefully in Lisbon or walking down the street in Brussels and read another terrible thing that's happened to a Black American, and that distance does not protect me or shield me emotionally, nor do I want it to turn into disconnection or into a shield. These are my people. I am a Black American, and I'm profoundly proud of that. Proud of our history, of our culture, of our brilliance and excellence and creativity and humor and resistance. Proud of what Black Americans have created in circumstances that were designed to destroy us, and that so many other people have benefited from. I don't become less Black American every time my passport gets stamped, and I don't want to be. I carry my history with me and my people with me and my culture. I carry Oakland, shout out to Oakland, with me. Wherever I go, I'm still me, and I'm still connected to and fighting for and feeling for my people. I'm just doing some of that fighting and feeling and connecting from a different vantage point. And if you think living abroad means that I have left that behind. Well, then you got to come back to the front porch next week because I got a lot to say because a lot has been happening and a lot needs to be said about it. Because my body is here in Europe, but my attention and my heart is with my people, wherever they are. And I'm seeing and feeling the threats and attacks and the ways Black safety is being eroded. I will say eroded. And I'm thinking seriously about what those patterns mean and what we do with that knowledge. So next week we are going there. But you probably know, I'm not the first Black American to leave America's borders. We've been doing this for generations. Some of the names we know: Frederick Douglass, yes, he did. W.E.B. Du Bois, Josephine Baker, Richard Wright, Paul Robeson, James Baldwin, and I recently found out too, Diana Ross lived abroad for many years. But I'm just as interested in the people whose names we'll never know, who lived abroad, permanently or for a while, whatever. The teachers or students or artists, workers, mothers, military families, the ordinary Black people who left America wondering what else is out there. I'm going to go look for it. Not because they were ashamed of being Black American, and not because they necessarily hated America or every part of America, but because human beings have always looked towards horizons and wondered whether there might be another way to live. And I think it's something deeply important about Black people claiming our right to explore and wonder and be curious, and our right to belong in this world, our right to experience other cultures that aren't our own without surrendering the culture that we have. And it's a beautiful culture. So no, I did not leave America to find a utopia, and I certainly didn't leave because I wanted to forget what it means to be a Black American or to be Black in general. I left because I wanted to develop this new fantastic point of view. I wanted more windows, bigger windows, more ways of seeing, and more opportunities to question what I thought I knew, more experiences that I could use to stretch my imagination. And I'm still working towards that new fantastic point of view every single day by listening more deeply and unlearning a lot of things that I really believe were true, by paying attention when something unsettles what I thought I understood, by allowing people and places to surprise me, by sometimes admitting, you know what, I was wrong about that, and by staying curious long enough to learn. Because there's something I have come to believe. This new fantastic point of view is not something that you just stumble upon. You cultivate it. You might touch upon it, but then to really immerse yourself, it has to be cultivated. It has to be an intentional thing. And that's where this stops being only my story, really, because none of this was just my story. Because maybe your new fantastic point of view won't come from living abroad. Maybe you've never wanted to live abroad, and that's okay too. And maybe you don't even like traveling. Fine. That's not the point. The question is, what are you reaching toward? How will you create a new fantastic point of view for yourself? And honestly, I gotta say, it's not just for yourself. It's gonna turn out that it's gonna be passed along to generations. And that's not exactly true either, because, well, not totally true, because I know that it's passed on to my children, but it's also passed upward to my parents, who really didn't want me to do this, who didn't want me to move abroad. But I can see they're developing a new fantastic point of view. So I'll get back to my questions. What are you trying to understand that you don't understand yet? And what are you doing to enlarge the window through which you see your own life? And maybe it can happen different ways. Maybe it's learning a history you were never taught, or maybe it's reading people you were told not to read. Maybe it's spending time with people whose lives are really different from yours. Or maybe you find it in art or nature or meditation or exercise. Maybe it's returning to a dream that you put down a long time ago. And maybe it's questioning a belief you've carried your entire life, or allowing yourself to imagine a life that looks nothing like the life someone told you you were supposed to have or to live. Oh, here's one other point. I wish, actually, that I had, when I was first imagining this life, or leaving the country, that I wish I'd had more support. When I talked about moving abroad, some people were silent. As I said, my parents were not happy about it. Others were openly critical. Very few asked, what are you hoping to find? Or what are you trying to build? Or what is your plan? So as we think about our own fantastic point of view path, I just want us to remember that we're a community. We can be that person who gets curious about someone else's dream. We can encourage them. We can ask better questions. We can help make room for a possibility that they may be too scared to name. Because sometimes pursuing a bigger life, is hard enough. But we don't have to make each other do it alone. I know what my dream looks like. I'm still traveling towards it. I'm still trying to see more and understand more or question more. And really, it's about imagining more. And actually, the older I get, the more of the world I see, the less interested I am in the certainty of thinking I'm right and holding on to certain views. I'm really interested in expansion. And I don't want a fantasy. I'm not chasing a fantasy of freedom, because I don't think freedom is a fantasy. I think it's real. But I want a fuller understanding of what freedom means. And then I ask myself, what else could this world become? Because this is a big world, and it's an old world. And despite everything happening right now, despite everything that really scares me, and that really upsets me and angers me, and that tells me to shrink my imagination, a change is a-coming. That's right. It is. It is happening. I feel it and I see it. And I don't know exactly what it looks like in total form yet. I don't think any of us does. But it's happening. And I want us as Black people imagining it too, and participating in it and shaping it. And I want to bring everything that I've learned from every place I've lived and everything I've experienced and every person who's challenged me, a mistake I've made, and every moment I've walked through it, all of it, to work in imagining what comes next. So I'm still working towards that new fantastic point of view. And I keep coming back to asking, what is yours? Maybe yours does require a passport. Maybe it doesn't require you to leave your neighborhood. Maybe it requires a book or a conversation or a blank page. And maybe you'll be scared. Maybe you'll even cry. And all of that is okay. You can cry and still keep going. I learned that firsthand. You can be afraid and still find out what's on the other side of the door. So as you leave the porch today, that's what I hope you'll take with you. Find the thing that expands you. Go for that new fantastic point of view. Cultivate it, embrace it, and keep asking what else might be possible. I'm never going to stop asking that. I'm Amma Robin on the front porch in Yatetown. You can come to this porch anytime. The light is always on for you. And remember, come as you are, take what you need, cry if you like. Asante Sana for being here today, and go for that new fantastic point of view and help someone else go for theirs. See you next week. One love, fam.